Jimin breaks down in tears during a live concert after Jungkook accuses him of betrayal. What follows behind the stage shocks even HYBE's closest staff. "You're a traitor, Jimin. Say it. Say it right now in front of everyone." The words cut through the stadium like a blade, but they weren't meant for the audience. They were for Jimin, echoing not just through the mic, but through the suffocating silence that followed. No music, no cheers. Just that one irreversible accusation. Jimin didn't move. He didn't have to. The pause was enough to fracture everything. In the inner earpiece, the staff was scrambling. Is this scripted? Was this cleared? Panic was palpable backstage, but the two men standing under the blinding lights weren't part of any script now. "Tell them what you did," Jungkook continued, voice rising. Not with volume, but with something sharper conviction laced in devastation. "Or I will." Taehyung tried to step forward, but Namjoon grabbed his arm and shook his head. "Not now. Let it play." The moment wasn't born of impulse. It had been building. For weeks, maybe months. Fans thought the tension was fan service. But this wasn't planned. "You read my message. You deleted it. You looked me in the eye and still went through with it." Jungkook's tone was fire and ice clashing. "And now you want me to just stand here and sing like none of it happened?" Jimin finally responded. Quietly. Barely audible, but sharp enough for the mic to catch. "Because I had no choice, Jungkook. You had every choice." Jungkook's reply was instant, explosive. "You chose them. You chose survival over honesty. You chose your safety over my trust. You chose to stab me in the back." Silence again. The silence that speaks louder than any scream. From the corner, Yoongi whispered under his breath. "This wasn't supposed to happen now." Hoseok turned to the comms team. "Kill the feed?" "No," Namjoon interjected firmly. "If they stop now, it'll look worse." On stage, Jimin turned slightly, but never looked Jungkook in the eye. "You don't understand." "Then help me understand," Jungkook snapped. "Explain why you handed over the rehearsal footage. Explain why the boardroom knew my lines before I said them. Explain why HYBE's CEO called me replaceable, using words I only ever told you." Jimin inhaled sharply. "Because if I didn't, they were going to terminate my contract." Jungkook froze. It wasn't the answer he expected, but it wasn't enough. "And you didn't think I could protect you?" he asked. "You couldn't even protect yourself." That reply didn't come with malice. It came with surrender. And that broke something. Jungkook stepped back. "So this is it? You really are just like them." The crowd hadn't moved. The cameras were still rolling. And in that suspended moment of chaos, masked in stillness, Jimin took off his mic, handed it to a nearby staffer, and walked off stage without saying another word. Backstage, the rest of the members looked at each other, not knowing who was supposed to follow. It was Taehyung who broke first. "I'm going to him." Namjoon blocked him. "Don't. He doesn't want comfort right now. He wants clarity." Taehyung's voice cracked. "He's crying." And Jungkook's unraveling. Yoongi grabbed his bag and stood. "This tour is done." "No," Namjoon said quietly, his leadership not fading even in disarray. "This tour has just begun, but it's not going to be about music anymore." Jungkook hadn't moved from center stage. He stood frozen, microphone lowered, chest heaving, but still there. And then he turned to the audience. "I'm not apologizing for the truth." That was the last sentence before the screen behind him went black, and the lights dropped. But the damage had already been done. Back in the dressing room, Jimin sat on the bench, eyes locked on the floor, his phone vibrating with endless notifications. HYBE execs, PR handlers, Taehyung, his own mother. He didn't touch it. Only one message caught his eye. A private group chat that once used to be their safe space, now just filled with unread tension. "JK, why didn't you tell me the whole story, Jimin?" "Because you would have hated me either way." "JK, now I just hate myself for trusting you." The phone slipped from his fingers. Behind the mirror, Taehyung watched but said nothing. Even his loyalty couldn't fix what was shattered. In a different hallway, Jungkook was locked in conversation with the senior manager. "You'll go live on Weverse and clean this up." "No." "Then we're going to lose everything we've worked for." Jungkook looked up. "If truth is what costs us everything, then we never had anything real to begin with." The staff member had no comeback. From that night, rumors multiplied. Some said it was scripted. Some believed it was a PR stunt. But those who were there on that stage, behind that curtain, knew better. This wasn't performance. This was war, and it had only just begun. You think silence will save you now, Jimin? Jungkook's voice shattered the false calm of the dressing room corridor. It wasn't loud, but it didn't need to be. The weight of it made Taehyung freeze mid-step. Jimin didn't even lift his head. Jungkook stepped in, dropping the towel that had been clutched in his fist. Do you know what it feels like to be betrayed in front of millions? Not just the fans, not just the staff, but by someone who knows what breaks me? Jimin didn't answer. His fingers rested against the edge of the vanity table, his eyes still fixated on the floor as if it would swallow the shame. You knew what that footage meant, Jungkook continued, approaching slowly. You knew what they'd cut together. You knew how it would look. You knew they'd twist it, and you still handed it to them. Jimin stood suddenly. They threatened me. Bullshit, Jungkook shot back. You didn't even try to tell me. You didn't even give me the chance to stand with you. If I had, I would have dragged you down with me. That's not your call. Jimin turned now, his eyes finally locking with Jungkook's. It was, because you wouldn't have let go. You would have fought them. You would have gone on stage and blown everything up before I even had the chance to think. I was trying to protect you. By sacrificing me instead? Jungkook's breath shook. By feeding them a version of me I don't even recognize? I didn't feed them anything. I was coerced. Then why didn't you fight? Because I'm tired, Jungkook, Jimin shouted for the first time. I'm tired of always being the one who has to be perfect, who has to smile, who has to stay quiet when things go wrong. I'm tired of pretending that I'm not terrified every single day of being erased. Jungkook blinked, stunned into stillness. I didn't betray you because I wanted to, Jimin said, his voice lower now. I did it because I thought if I gave them something, anything, they'd leave us alone. I thought if I gave them a piece of myself, they wouldn't come for the rest. They came for me instead, Jungkook replied, ice creeping back into his tone. And you let them? Silence filled the room again. It was a different silence now. Not stunned, but heavy. Complicated. A knock came at the door. It was Namjoon. We need to talk, he said, eyeing both of them carefully. Now. Jungkook didn't look away from Jimin as he passed him to leave. This isn't over. In the conference room, the atmosphere was acidic. Hybe's upper management sat on one side of the table. The members sat across, with Namjoon in the center. We need to contain this, the PR director began. Damage control is top priority. Yoongi scoffed. Contain what? The truth? The director faltered. With all due respect, this isn't just about what's true. It's about optics, public trust, brand deals, international partnerships. Do I look like I care about brand deals right now? Jungkook said coldly. Hoseok tried to mediate. Let's not throw more fuel on this. Taehyung, who had been unusually quiet, finally spoke. We all saw what happened. We all know what's been happening. You think this is new? That this explosion came out of nowhere? Do you want us to list everything we've buried for this company? Namjoon added. How many times have we rewritten scripts, canceled interviews, swallowed stories to protect the illusion of harmony? The CEO leaned forward. What we're trying to do is preserve your legacy. This group, your group, is bigger than any one person. No, Jungkook said. This group was built by all of us, and it's falling apart because none of you respected that. Then what do you suggest, Mr. Jeon? The CEO snapped. That we issue a statement blaming Jimin? Blame ourselves? You want a sacrificial lamb? I want accountability, Jungkook said. And I want him, he glanced at Jimin, who had just entered quietly, to tell the fans what really happened. Jimin's jaw tensed. You want me to get on camera and confess everything? No, Yoongi interjected, voice firm. We want you to stop hiding. Taehyung's voice was even colder. Especially from us. Jimin stood still, every word landing like a blow. But then he spoke, calmly. If I go public with this, I lose everything. The brand will cut me off. The endorsements disappear. The label will ghost me. I'll be called disloyal, manipulative, maybe even dangerous. And if you don't, Jungkook asked, then I keep living with the fact that I destroyed the only family I've ever trusted. The silence was suffocating again. Namjoon looked up. We can rebuild trust, but not on lies. The CEO slammed a folder onto the table. Do whatever you want. Just remember, If this ship sinks, it drags all of you with it. Backstage, the concert tour was being dissected by global media. Every major outlet had picked up the confrontation clip. Subtitles, translations, fan theories, it had gone viral. And while the world debated who was right, inside the practice studio, the lines between friendship and betrayal blurred deeper. Later that night, Jimin sat on the floor, staring at a contract on his phone screen. A new offer, silent conditions, a backdoor from the firestorm if he agreed to keep quiet. He dialed a number. Not Jungkook, not management. Taehyung, can we talk? You think now's a good time? I know I messed up. No, you lied. You looked Jungkook in the eye and let him walk into a storm alone. I watched you do it. I wanted to believe you had a reason, but maybe I just didn't want to accept the truth. Jimin didn't reply. Taehyung's voice was colder than Jimin had ever heard. You want to fix this? Tell the truth. Not to the fans, not to the world, to him. Will he even listen? That's not your choice. Jimin ended the call. The next day, he showed up unannounced at Jungkook's apartment. You have 2 minutes, Jungkook said, leaning against the doorframe. Jimin stepped in anyway. I don't care what the company says. I'm going to tell the truth. On my own channel, on my own words. No PR, no edits. Jungkook folded his arms. Why now? Because I finally realized what scares me more than being hated by the world is being hated by you. Jungkook didn't respond at first. Then, you're not a villain, Jimin. You're just someone who forgot who was fighting beside him. I want to remember again, Jimin whispered. Then start by not running. The live stream that followed broke every record. Jimin sat alone. No script, no makeup, no stylists. He told everything. How Hybe had offered him a path of favor in exchange for monitoring rehearsals. How executives had pushed him to report creative friction among members. How he had agreed at first out of fear, then out of survival, until it became too late. And finally, how he had sold out his own brotherhood. Jungkook didn't appear in the video, but he watched every second. So did Taehyung. So did the world. The apology wasn't perfect, but it was real. And for the first time, silence didn't follow his words. Understanding did. In the quiet aftermath, Namjoon gathered the members in the same room for the first time in days. There's still more damage than we can fix in one night, he said, but maybe this is where we start rebuilding. Yoongi nodded. And maybe this time, we build it without pretending. Jimin turned to Jungkook. I'm not asking you to forgive me. I'm asking you not to forget what we meant to each other. Jungkook didn't answer, but he stayed. And sometimes, that's the beginning of healing. You don't get to walk away after that. Jungkook's voice cut through the studio like it didn't care who heard it. Jimin had just walked in, expecting silence, expecting the tension, the distance, maybe even indifference. But not this. Jimin stopped, slowly turning around. Then, what do I get to do, Jungkook? Tell me. Because apparently, every decision I've ever made already defined me in your eyes. Jungkook stood up from the couch, arms crossed, unreadable. You get to answer for it. I did. Jimin's voice shook, but he forced it steady. I went live. I told the truth. That was for the fans. Jungkook stepped closer. Not for me. Not for us. What do you want me to say? Jimin asked louder. That I regret it? That I wish I'd never signed that deal? That I'd rather burn down my own future than watch you bleed for something you didn't do? Yes, Jungkook said without hesitation. I want you to say exactly that. Because you didn't just hand them information, you handed them me. Silence expanded between them, toxic and familiar. Jimin looked down. You're right, I did. The door opened before Jungkook could respond. Taehyung entered with Yoongi behind him. Both silent, but the air changed. Denser, more dangerous. We need to talk, Taehyung said, not even glancing at Jimin. Now, Jungkook looked over, tense. This about the vote? Yoongi nodded. Hybe wants us to decide by tomorrow if we continue the tour. Taehyung's eyes narrowed on Jimin. With or without him? Jimin didn't flinch. I'll step down. No, Namjoon said from the doorway. No one had noticed him arrive, but now that he was here, every room shifted toward his gravity. You don't get to walk out as the hero. That's not how this ends. Jimin turned to face him. So, you'd rather I stay and pretend nothing happened? Namjoon walked into the room, folding his arms. No, I want you to stay and own it. I want you to understand what it costs to rebuild a house you helped burn down. Jimin swallowed hard. I've tried. Trying isn't enough, Taehyung snapped. You looked me in the face and told me you didn't know what was going on. The same day Jungkook's schedule was leaked, the same night he was blindsided in rehearsal, you sat next to me and joked about nothing. You didn't just lie to Jungkook, you lied to all of us. Jimin's voice cracked. I was scared. You think we weren't? Yoongi's voice was sharp. You think we haven't been offered deals? Threats? Manipulated? You think you're the only one who's ever had to make a choice between the group and yourself? I didn't want to lose everything. You lost us instead, Jungkook said quietly. Jimin's breath hitched. Then what do you want from me now? Taehyung stepped forward. We want to know why you really did it. I told you. No, Taehyung interrupted. You told us what the company wanted, what the lawyers prepared, what PR rehearsed, but you never told us what was behind it. You never told us the real reason. Jimin hesitated, and then he broke. Because I thought you already resented me, he whispered. Because I heard the whispers in the halls, the comments online, even from staff that I was dragging us down, that I didn't deserve the spotlight, that I was the weakest link. The room fell into a suffocating silence. I thought, if I gave them something small, maybe they'd give me room to breathe. Just for a little while. I didn't think they'd use it to humiliate Jungkook. I didn't think it would turn into this. Jungkook stared at him. So you threw me to the wolves because you felt insecure? No, Jimin said desperately. Because I was drowning and nobody noticed. Because I've been screaming quietly for years, and every time I tried to talk about it, I was told to be grateful, to smile more, to just hold on a little longer. You should have come to us, Yoongi said, voice quieter now. Not them. I didn't know how. Namjoon leaned forward, fingers steepled. You still don't. Jimin's shoulders slumped. I don't expect forgiveness. I just don't want to be hated forever. Taehyung walked past him. You're not hated, but don't mistake silence for acceptance. Namjoon sighed. We have 24 hours to give Hybe our answer. If we move forward, it has to be unanimous. And if we don't, this entire era ends here. Jungkook looked out the window. Then maybe it should. Taehyung turned sharply. You really think ending it is the solution? Jungkook shrugged. It's honest. It's clean. Clean? Hoseok echoed from behind the doorframe. No one had noticed him until now either. You think this is clean? He walked in slowly, gaze cold and cutting. This isn't clean, Jungkook. This is a graveyard of trust, of brotherhood, of years we gave everything to. You want to walk away now, fine. But don't pretend it's a noble act. It's just giving up. Jungkook's jaw tightened. I didn't ask to be betrayed, and we didn't ask to choose between two people we love, Hoseok fired back. Yoongi rubbed his temple. Enough. We're not solving this by throwing more gasoline. Namjoon stood again. You all have one night to think, separately. No meetings, no messages, no pressure. When we sit down tomorrow, we decide. Jimin looked like he wanted to speak, but no one gave him the chance. That night, the dorm was silent. Jungkook sat in his room, the blue glow of his laptop flickering across his face. The video of Jimin's confession was paused on the screen. He hovered the cursor over the play button again. Watched it, rewatched it, every pause, every breath, every broken syllable. Taehyung was in the rooftop garden, phone clutched in hand but not texting, just staring at the city below, remembering the nights they used to laugh without thinking of tomorrow's schedule, or the pressure, or the cracks forming beneath their feet. Namjoon paced the living room, a notebook in his hand, filled with crossed-out thoughts. Words like truth, fracture, loyalty, trauma, all circled, none resolved. Yoongi played the piano. Low, dark chords. Not for a song, not for a performance. Just to feel something structured in the chaos. And Jimin? Jimin sat alone in the practice room, surrounded by silence. He pulled out a box from his locker. Inside were old letters, drawings, gifts, memories of a time before this version of them, before the stage turned into a battlefield, before love twisted into loyalty tests. He found a note Jungkook had written him years ago. "You're not alone, even when you think you are." It broke him again. Morning came too fast. They gathered in the boardroom. No staff, no management, just 7 chairs, 7 members. Namjoon stood. "We're not here to debate. We're here to vote. Stay together or walk away." Jungkook looked up. "One condition." Namjoon nodded. "Go ahead. I want him." Jungkook looked at Jimin. "To look me in the eye and promise he'll never lie to me again, no matter what it costs." Jimin didn't flinch. He stood, walked to the center of the room, and without a single waver in his voice said, "I swear." Jungkook stared at him and nodded. Namjoon smiled faintly. "Then let's begin." The vote was unanimous, not because everything was healed, but because they chose to fight again, together, even through the fire. "You voted yes, but your eyes said no." Jungkook's voice sliced through the after-meeting silence. The others had left the room one by one, but Jimin had stayed, pretending to look over some documents, pretending to tie his shoes, pretending he had any excuse not to walk out that door. Jungkook had stayed too, watching, waiting. Jimin didn't answer immediately. His fingers tightened around the edge of the table. "Is that what you want to talk about now?" Jungkook stepped closer. "You think I don't notice when you flinch every time I speak?" "I don't flinch." "Yes, you do. You've been flinching since the moment I said your name again after weeks of silence." Jimin pushed the chair back and stood. "Because I thought that name would never come from your mouth again. Because I thought I lost the right to even hear it." "You didn't lose it." Jungkook stared at him. "You gave it up." Jimin walked to the far end of the room, his back now to Jungkook. "Then why did you vote yes? If you still hate me?" "Because I'd rather hate you beside me than miss you from afar." Jimin turned, his voice cracked. "Do you even realize how cruel that sounds?" Jungkook's tone didn't shift. "It's not supposed to be kind. It's supposed to be real." Jimin took a step forward, and then another. "Then let me be real too. I don't sleep. I don't eat. I don't walk into a room without wondering who still sees me as a friend, and who sees me as the enemy who broke the golden one." Jungkook's eyes narrowed. "Don't put that title on me. I never asked to be golden, but you wore it better than anyone. Then maybe you should have protected it better." Jimin's hands slammed against the glass wall, startling even himself. "You think I didn't try?" Jungkook was silent. Not because he didn't have a reply, but because for once, Jimin wasn't deflecting. He was unraveling. "I lied because I was weak," Jimin whispered. "But you punish like you're righteous." Jungkook stepped forward now, voice low. "And you break people like you're justified." Jimin laughed bitterly. "So this is what we are now. A circle of mutual destruction." "No," Jungkook said. "We're survivors walking over the ruins of something sacred." The room held the silence, but it was trembling under the weight. From outside, Taehyung watched through the tinted glass, saying nothing. Behind him, Namjoon approached. "They need to say it all," Namjoon said softly. Taehyung nodded. "Or they'll explode when it matters most." Namjoon sighed. "We survived worse, but this feels personal in a way the world was never supposed to see." Meanwhile, Jimin sank into the chair again, no longer trying to look strong. "I want you to be angry," he admitted. "I want you to scream. I want you to call me names. Because this quiet, it's worse. It feels like you've made peace with a version of me that no longer exists." Jungkook shook his head. "I'm not angry at you anymore." "Then what?" "I'm disappointed in myself," Jungkook confessed. "For trusting too blindly. For not seeing the signs. For thinking we were invincible. We used to be," Jimin said quietly. "No," Jungkook replied. "We used to pretend we were." Jimin ran a hand through his hair. "So what now? We perform together, act like brothers, and then go back to our separate corners?" Jungkook leaned against the table. "No, we stop pretending. If we hurt, we say it. If we're confused, we talk. If we hate each other for a moment, we don't bury it. And if we can't fix it, then we live in the truth of it, not the lie." The door opened. Yoongi stepped in, holding a tablet. "Emergency meeting. High boardroom. Now!" They followed him in silence. Inside, every executive was seated, faces stiff. The head of international affairs was speaking. The leak wasn't internal. It came from an outside agency. But it was someone with access. Namjoon frowned. What leak? The screen lit up behind them. Headlines. Jungkook's private therapy records hacked, shocking claims against Habe confirmed. Jungkook's face drained of color. Jimin sat up straight. What the hell is this? A Hybe rep looked down at her folder. 3 hours ago, an anonymous whistleblower leaked over 100 pages of private documentation. Included were recordings of one-on-one sessions Jungkook had during the hiatus. There are audio files, transcripts, emotional breakdowns, everything. Jungkook's fists clenched. How did they even get those? Namjoon stood. This is a violation. The CEO was pale. We didn't know these were being archived. You didn't know? Yoongi snapped. You recorded therapy sessions without consent? It was outsourced to a third-party vendor, one executive stammered. They were meant to be analyzed for wellness improvement. That's not improvement, Jungkook growled. That's surveillance. Jimin stood, trembling. What do you need from us? The PR director spoke. We need unity, a press appearance, statement from the whole group, standing with Jungkook. I don't want that, Jungkook said immediately. Why? The rep asked. Because this is my pain, not your redemption arc. Jimin placed a hand on the table. What if it's not just your pain? Jungkook looked at him. Jimin continued. What if we all stood beside you, not to save face, but to say, you were never alone, even when you thought you were? The room went quiet. Namjoon nodded. Then let's do it right. Not a show. A confession. Later that night, the group sat together in the same studio where they once recorded their debut single. Cameras on. No lights, no stylists. Just 7 men, 1 mic, and pain. Jungkook spoke first. They stole my words, my thoughts, my fear, and they gave it to the world like it was entertainment. Jimin followed, and we watched it happen like spectators until we couldn't anymore. Taehyung added, and now we take it back. Our voices, our story. One by one, they opened up. About fame, about fear, about feeling like puppets in a machine built to love them only when they smiled. About secrets no one was supposed to know. Jungkook ended the stream with a single sentence. You may know our songs, but now you know our silence too. The comments flooded in. The world didn't just watch, they wept. But Hybe panicked, because their most profitable asset had just declared war on silence. And this time, no one was walking off that stage. You knew they'd use it against me, Jungkook said without raising his voice. You handed it to them. Even if you didn't press send, you still opened the door. Jimin didn't move. He was sitting on the edge of the stage, long after the stream ended, long after the cameras were gone, long after the staff scattered like ghosts after a funeral. His hands rested in his lap, still, tight. His voice was small, but sharp enough to hurt. You think I didn't try to stop it? Jungkook stood above him. You tried to stop it after you lit the match. I didn't think they'd use your therapy, Jimin muttered. Jungkook laughed. Not from humor, but from something darker. Then you haven't been paying attention. Or maybe you just wanted to believe they wouldn't cross that line. But you've seen what they do. Hell, you helped them once. Jimin stood now, chest rising. I thought if I didn't cooperate, I'd be replaced, discarded. I saw the scripts. I saw how they wrote new lines without me in them. I heard the meetings. I knew they were grooming someone else. So you thought if you sacrificed me, they'd keep you? Jungkook stepped forward. You thought loyalty to monsters meant safety? I thought survival meant keeping my mouth shut. And now? Jungkook's voice was a razor. Jimin didn't look away. Now I know silence costs more than fear. There was a pause. Tense. Fractured. Taehyung stepped out from the shadows where he had been watching the entire time. She warned you, he said quietly. Both of them turned. Jungkook blinked. Who? Taehyung's jaw was set. Your therapist. She tried to tell you they were recording the sessions. She reached out to legal. I found the emails. Jimin turned white. Wait. What? Taehyung pulled out his phone, opened a file, and threw it on the table in front of them. She filed a complaint. 6 months ago. It was buried. HR denied knowledge, claimed all sessions were confidential, but someone up top gave permission. Jungkook picked up the phone. He scrolled. Read. And his hands trembled. They knew, he said. They knew, and they let me sit in front of that camera and bleed. Taehyung nodded. And when it leaked, they feigned ignorance. Jimin looked down. This goes higher than we thought. No, Jungkook replied. It goes exactly where we thought. We just didn't want to admit it. The room spun. Yoongi entered next. There's more. Jungkook didn't even lift his eyes. How much more can there be? Yoongi sat down. Calm, but cold. The leak wasn't just your therapy. It included group strategy documents, internal correspondence about member replacements. They've been building profiles to restructure the brand. Jimin's breath hitched. Replace? They were preparing for a fracture, Yoongi said. For the day one of us would break. They just didn't know which one would go first. So they watched, waited. Jungkook looked at Jimin again. And you were their lens. I didn't know it was all this, Jimin said. I swear. Namjoon arrived then, followed by Hoseok, their faces grim. Namjoon dropped a binder on the table. They want a closed-door meeting. Today. No press. Just us and the top board. They're trying to control the damage. Taehyung sneered. They should be trying to control their conscience. Hoseok glanced at Jungkook. You want to go? No, Jungkook replied. I want to confront. Later that day, in the highest floor conference room of Hybe's tower, the 7 members stood facing 15 executives. Behind a long glass table, the CEO adjusted his tie. Let's be professional. Jungkook's reply was instant. You used my trauma as leverage. The legal rep cleared her throat. That information was not supposed to leave the secure database. But it did, Namjoon said. And it's your system, added Yoongi. The COO sighed. Let's talk solutions. There is no solution without accountability. Jungkook cut in. You want us to continue under the same contract. You want us to act like the trust hasn't been shattered. You want a clean face for a filthy structure. Taehyung stepped forward. We want names. Who approved the recordings? Who approved the storage? Who authorized the sharing? The room was silent. Then, a man at the end of the table stood. He was older, quieter VP of Artist Development. I did. All heads turned. I signed the permission. I thought it was for internal optimization. I didn't know it would be used as a weapon. Jimin stared. You pressured me into that early reporting agreement? You told me it was for team synergy. You lied. The man nodded. I did. Jungkook clenched his jaw. And what do you think happens now? I resign, the man said. The CEO's voice boomed. That's not your decision. No, the man cut him off. But this is my shame. Let me own it. Namjoon watched him quietly, then turned back to the board. It's not enough. Then what do you want? The CEO asked, exasperated. Yoongi's voice was calm but merciless. You step back from our brand. You dissolve the artist surveillance division. You publicly acknowledge the violation. And you let us restructure our own creative autonomy. Impossible. The CEO scoffed. Then we walk. Jungkook said. The room stilled. Namjoon added. Not just from this tour. From the company. From everything. Panic crossed faces. The PR director stood. That would destroy your legacy. No, Jimin said. It would protect our dignity. There was shouting, papers slamming, legal threats muttered under breath. But the members stood still. United. Jungkook looked at Jimin once more. I never needed you to be perfect, he said. I just needed you to be honest. I'm here now, Jimin replied. Raw, broken, but here. Taehyung exhaled. Then let's stop surviving and start living. That night, BTS released their own official video. Not through Hybe, not through any label. It opened with a single frame. Jungkook standing in the studio, holding the mic. You've heard everything. Now hear it from us. One by one, they spoke not as idols, but as men. Jimin went last. I betrayed someone I love. I tried to fix it with apologies. But words mean nothing without action. So here's mine. I stand beside him again, not because I deserve forgiveness, but because he still chose to stay. The video went viral. But more than viral, it started a movement. Other artists stepped forward. Other stories surfaced. And Hybe? They changed. Not because they wanted to, but because 7 voices refused to be silenced. In the final scene, Jungkook looked into the camera. We are not perfect, but we are free now. And for the first time in years, Jimin smiled. Not for a brand, not for survival, but for healing. And behind him, the 6 others smiled too. No more scripts, no more silence, just truth. Together. The sound of the door clicking behind him was louder than it should have been, considering the room was full of people. Jimin stood still, just past the threshold, unsure if he was interrupting something sacred or walking willingly into a battlefield that still had the scent of blood on the floor. The room, the same glass-walled studio where they'd once voted to continue, was dim. Only the overhead panel lights buzzed. Taehyung was leaning against the far wall, arms crossed. Namjoon sat with his back straight, hands clasped. Jungkook didn't even turn to acknowledge his presence. Yoongi looked up first. "You're late." "I know," Jimin replied softly. "Are you going to sit? Or are you here to listen behind the glass again?" Jungkook said it without malice, but not with kindness either. Jimin walked toward the circle of chairs and sat, not directly beside Jungkook, but 2 seats away. The space between them might as well have been a canyon. Namjoon cleared his throat. "We're not here to rehash the damage. That's been done. The fans know. The world knows. What we're facing now is much deeper." Taehyung cut in. "We're fractured. More than we want to admit." Yoongi nodded. "This can't be fixed by press releases or tears. We have to sit in it, bleed through it." Jungkook finally turned. His voice was measured, but raw. "So let's talk about trust. Let's stop pretending." Jimin inhaled. "Do you want me to start?" "No," Jungkook said. "I want you to answer one thing honestly." Jimin's hands folded in his lap. "Ask, do you still have contact with the exec that pressured you?" The room froze. Jimin blinked. "What?" "The one who made you sign the early report clause. The one you never named," Jungkook clarified. "Do you still speak to him?" Jimin hesitated. Taehyung's voice darkened. "You do, don't you?" Jimin looked down. "He reached out. Once. After the stream." "What did he say?" Jungkook asked. Jimin's voice trembled. "That if I kept quiet about certain details, he'd ensure I still had a path back to solo promotions. That there were people who still saw value in me if I didn't burn more bridges." Namjoon stood from his seat. "And you didn't think to bring this up sooner?" "I didn't accept it," Jimin said quickly. "I ignored the message." Yoongi stood too. "That's not enough. Silence is complicity. Again, I was scared," Jimin admitted. "That if I responded, even to reject him, it would reignite something. I thought staying quiet was better." Jungkook's jaw flexed. "You keep thinking silence will save you, and it keeps destroying everyone around you instead." Jimin's eyes glistened. "I'm not hiding anything." "Then prove it," Taehyung snapped. "Give us your phone." Jimin's body tensed. "What?" "Right now," Taehyung said. "Open your messages. Prove there's nothing you're hiding." Jimin looked around the room, seeking someone to stop this. No one spoke. Not even Hoseok, who usually played peacekeeper. He pulled out his phone. Slowly. Placed it on the table. Unlocked it. Taehyung grabbed it. Scrolled. Namjoon moved beside him. "Check the deleted messages." Jimin swallowed. Taehyung opened the trash bin. There it was. A message from 10 days ago. The contact name blurred just a phone number, but the content was clear. "Final chance. If you go further with the group's independence stunt, we will cut you out permanently. Stay out of the next press round. No comments. Let them handle it. You've done enough damage." Jungkook read it aloud. Jimin said nothing. Taehyung looked up. "Why didn't you tell us this?" "Because I didn't want you to think I was still loyal to them," Jimin said, his voice cracking. "Because I was scared you'd think I hadn't changed." Jungkook shook his head. "We don't need you to be perfect. We need you to be honest. And you still don't get that." Namjoon looked tired. "How can we stand on a stage together when we don't know if we're standing next to someone or a ticking bomb?" Jimin stood. "I'm not a threat, but you're not a shield either," Yoongi said. "Not anymore." "I can be," Jimin said, stepping forward. "Let me prove it." Jungkook's voice was low. "That's what scares me." Taehyung pushed the phone back toward him. "One more lie, Jimin. Just one. And I won't speak to you again. Not on stage, not behind the scenes, not as a brother, not as anything." Jimin's lip trembled. "I understand." The next morning, the headline broke across Korean news outlets. HYBE Vice Chairman resigns. Following BTS exposure, scandal anonymous source hints more names to be released. The group hadn't spoken to press, but someone had. At first, they assumed it was the whistleblower who leaked Jungkook's records, until they saw the attached voice file. It was Jimin. His voice, clear, tired, stripped. I kept things from my members. I chose fear over truth. This is my penance, not to be praised, but to be honest where I wasn't before. I have nothing to lose now except the last fragments of trust I've been given, so I offer this. The executives lost their minds. Hybe's phones lit up. Lawyers scrambled. But the members, they sat in silence after hearing the audio, one by one. It was Namjoon who spoke first. He burned the last bridge. Or maybe, Jungkook said, he finally built one. They looked at each other, uncertain, but no longer afraid to look. Later that night, Jimin stood alone in the center of the practice studio. No lights, no mirrors, just silence. The door opened. Jungkook entered. Said nothing. He walked until he was close enough to be heard, and he stopped. You made a lot of people angry today. I know, Jimin whispered. Jungkook stared at him. I'm still angry, he said. Jimin nodded. But I believe you now. Jimin looked up, and Jungkook extended a hand. We start over. Not for them, for us. Jimin reached out, touched his fingers. And for the first time in months, the air didn't feel like it might collapse them. It felt like breath. It felt like beginning. The air inside Hybe's main boardroom was no longer cold, it was volatile. The tension wasn't hidden behind polite smiles or veiled threats this time. It was right there, spilling out of trembling hands, bitter glares, and nervous silences. The moment Jimin's voice had leaked to the press, everything began unraveling faster than anyone could brace for. He stood alone in front of the long rectangular table, facing a half-circle of executives who looked at him like a disease they failed to contain. No members beside him, no lawyers on his side, just him and a raw, irreversible choice he made public without asking permission. You blindsided us, one of the senior directors said. Her voice was calm, but the tension in her jaw betrayed her restraint. You understand the magnitude of what you've done? Jimin didn't blink. Yes. You broke internal protocols. I broke under pressure, he replied. And I chose honesty over manipulation, something this company hasn't done in years. The CEO stood now. Don't preach integrity when you were the one feeding us information months ago. Jimin looked straight at him. And I stopped. And now I'm cleaning up what I allowed to rot. There was a collective pause. You've single-handedly put the company's reputation at risk, another executive added. Do you realize what you've exposed? Jimin took a breath. The truth. Don't be naive, the CEO barked. You didn't expose truth. You triggered investigations. Audits. Investors are backing out. We've lost 3 international partnerships in 48 hours. I'm not sorry. Then, you're not welcome. Silence again. Excuse me? Jimin asked, even though he'd heard the words. You're suspended indefinitely from all Hybe-related activities, the CEO said. Effective immediately. No promotions, no interviews, no rehearsals, no press. You're to submit your work phone and step back from the BTS brand until further notice. Jimin felt his throat go dry. So, that's it? That's the beginning, someone muttered. Jimin nodded once. You want my phone? Here. He dropped it on the table, not gently, and turned around without waiting to be dismissed. As he walked out of the boardroom, he didn't feel free. He felt watched, unprotected, like a soldier walking away from a battlefield, knowing the war was now inside him. The moment he stepped into the hallway, Jungkook was waiting. Their eyes met. Jimin didn't need to speak. Jungkook already knew. You're out? I'm suspended. Jungkook exhaled. Did you expect anything different? I expected worse, Jimin muttered. But it still hit harder than I imagined. You were ready to be the villain, Jungkook said. But you weren't ready to be alone. Jimin closed his eyes. I didn't think they'd turn this fast. I thought the exposure would buy us breathing room. I didn't think I'd be the first one they cut. Jungkook's expression darkened. That was the plan all along. What do you mean? You were always disposable to them, Jimin, Jungkook said. You were the easiest to blame. The first to fall. They just needed the excuse. Jimin swallowed. I'm going with you, Jungkook said. Jimin's eyes widened. What? I'm stepping back from promotions. No, Jungkook. You can't. I already did. This morning, Jimin looked panicked. You said we'd start over. And we are. But not with them. We need the platform. No, Jungkook said firmly. We need each other more than we need their stage. Yoongi stepped out of the elevator at that moment and stopped short when he saw them. You told him? He asked Jungkook. Jungkook nodded. Yoongi stepped closer. Then I guess I'm telling you too. Telling me what? Jimin asked. I'm out, Yoongi said. Not suspended. Voluntary leave. I'm not performing until they clean house. Jimin's face was blank. Why are you doing this? You exposed the truth. That doesn't mean we're whole again, but it means you didn't run. Yoongi's voice was flat, but honest. The least we can do is stand with you when the building you burned collapses. I don't deserve that, Jimin whispered. No, Yoongi replied. But that's not why we're doing it. Behind them, Taehyung appeared at the end of the hallway, walking fast, eyes sharp. You're trending again, he said, approaching. #1 in 23 countries. Jimin looked confused. What did I do now? Taehyung handed him his phone. A clip was circulating everywhere, an edited version of the audio leak, paired with photos of Jimin being escorted out of Hybe's building. Jimin scrolled. They made it look like I was dragged out. That's the narrative now, Taehyung said. The rebel, the traitor, the coward. Jimin's voice shook. And people believe it? Some do. But others, Jungkook added, are finally asking questions. Later that evening, the 6 members minus Jimin sat together in a private suite in Namjoon's apartment. It was the first time in years they'd gathered without a media schedule or a manager in the room. The air wasn't casual. It was filled with something deeper, unspoken, like a reunion haunted by everything left unsaid. So, Namjoon began. Where do we go from here? Yoongi leaned back. Depends. Are we still a group? Jungkook didn't hesitate. We are. Hoseok nodded. Then we act like one. Namjoon turned to Jungkook. He's been exiled. Then we move with him, Jungkook said. Not all of us can afford to step down, Hoseok said gently. Some of us are still under personal contracts. Taehyung folded his hands. Then we do what we can. But we don't turn on each other again, Yoongi added. That means no press statements, no apologies, no cover-ups. Namjoon's voice was low. They'll retaliate. Let them, Jungkook said. We don't need a company. We need truth. Back in his apartment, Jimin sat on the edge of his bed, watching his name burn through headlines like wildfire. He didn't cry, not anymore. The tears were used up. All that remained was the ache. His phone buzzed. Unknown number. He picked up. You started a war, the voice said. Jimin's throat tightened. Then fight me directly. You think this ends with you walking away clean? I don't care how it ends, Jimin replied. Only that it ends on my terms. The voice was silent for a moment. Then, you'll regret this. Jimin hung up, and then deleted the number. Seconds later, a new message came in. It was from Jungkook, a photo. It was the 7 of them, back in 2015. No filters, no stylists. Just kids in a hallway, laughing like the world hadn't found them yet. Beneath it, a text. We're still yours, no matter how messy it gets. Jimin stared at the screen and smiled. Not because the pain was gone, but because, for the first time in years, he didn't have to carry it alone. The rain fell hard against the glass walls of the private suite Hybe used for emergency crisis management. Inside, the room wasn't quiet. It was boiling. Tension didn't whisper anymore. It screamed in broken voices, slammed fists, and accusations that bounced off the walls like ricocheting bullets. At the center of it all stood Namjoon, flanked by Taehyung and Hoseok, their expressions unreadable. Seated across from them were Hybe's senior directors, legal consultants, and the PR crisis team who hadn't slept in 36 hours. Jungkook wasn't there, neither was Jimin, and that was the problem. We're hemorrhaging control, the VP of Media Strategy snapped. This isn't about artistic direction anymore. It's about liability, damage, and breach. We already told you, Namjoon replied, tone calm but firm. We're not here to be threatened into silence again. The board will not tolerate insubordination, a legal advisor added. Not after Jimin's actions. Not after Jungkook's statement. He didn't make a statement, Taehyung said coldly. He made a choice. A choice that could cost this company billions. Maybe the company should have considered that before treating us like a replaceable product line. Hoseok's voice sliced through the noise like a blade. We've been loyal for a decade. You don't get to erase that because we finally pushed back. The PR director exhaled through her teeth. We're not erasing history. We're trying to prevent the collapse of everything you helped build. And what exactly did we build? Namjoon asked. A brand or a prison? A long silence followed. The CEO leaned forward. What do you want? To be free, Namjoon said. From what? From being silenced, Taehyung replied. From being used, Hosok added. From being afraid, Namjoon finished. The CEO tapped the table once, then twice. You'll get your answer in 72 hours. We don't need 72 hours, Taehyung said as he stood. We already made our decision. We're pulling out of the next leg of the tour. The room exploded in protests, threats, and panic, but the members walked out without another word. Back at Jungkook's apartment, the mood wasn't any lighter. Jimin stood by the window, watching the city blur behind streaks of water. Jungkook was seated on the couch, scrolling through headlines that made his chest tighten with every swipe. They'd stayed up the entire night before, speaking in half sentences and long pauses. Their rhythm was still off, the scars too fresh, but something had shifted. Less resistance, more listening. Still, neither had said what they truly feared most. Jimin turned. They're going to sue me, aren't they? Jungkook nodded. Probably. Jimin walked over slowly. And if they do, they'll try to drag you down with me. I'm not afraid of them. Jimin lowered himself onto the floor, back resting against the couch. You should be. Jungkook's eyes stayed on the screen. I was. For a long time. But fear makes you obedient, not honest. Jimin let out a hollow laugh. You always knew who you were, even when we didn't. That's not true. It is, Jimin said, voice barely above a whisper. You fought for us, even when we didn't ask you to. Jungkook finally looked down at him. And you protected me even when I didn't deserve it. The air grew still. Jimin rubbed his hands together. There's something I didn't tell you. Jungkook didn't blink. Jimin continued, slower now. Before the leak, before I gave the internal audio to the press, someone reached out to me. Jungkook sat upright. Who? A former employee from Hybe. Said they had files that could destroy the board. Proof of everything. Names, dates, transactions. But they wouldn't release it unless someone from inside publicly cracked first. Jungkook frowned. So you were bait. I was proof that even the most obedient could break. You used yourself as leverage? I thought if I broke the seal, they'd do the rest. Who's they? They never gave me a name. Only encrypted files and burner messages. All I know is their former staff disillusioned, angry. Some of them artists. Some of them just human beings who saw too much. Jungkook stood, pacing now. You realize what that means? Yes? They used you to trigger a war. I let them. Jungkook turned, furious. Why didn't you tell me? Because I didn't want to drag you into another game of trust. I wanted to believe I could do something right. Alone. You don't get to do this alone, Jungkook said. Not anymore. I already did, Jimin said quietly. And it worked. Jungkook's breath caught in his chest. What? Jimin reached into his jacket and handed him a flash drive. This came this morning, the full archive. Jungkook stared at it. What's on it? Everything. That night, the 7 members met in secret at an abandoned recording studio in Itaewon. No cameras, no staff, no lights. Only them and the device sitting in the middle of the table like a ticking bomb. Namjoon plugged it in. Files loaded. Hundreds of them. Yoongi scrolled through them with a quiet intensity. Illegal contract extensions. Surveillance logs on artists. Manipulated metrics. Ghostwriting admissions. Internal silencing memos. And a folder labeled simply BTS. Inside were transcripts of their private conversations. Audio from green rooms. Rehearsal notes marked with psychological evaluations. Taehyung muttered. They profiled us like lab rats. Namjoon's voice was grave. This could kill the company, or it could set everyone else free, Jimin said. Yoongi looked up. We release this, we're done. No more stadiums, no more endorsements, no more legacy. Maybe legacy isn't about statues, Jungkook said. Maybe it's about sacrifice. Namjoon looked around the table. Final vote. We drop it, or we stay silent. One by one, they raised their hands. All 7. And somewhere in the heart of the city, a storm louder than the rain began to build. The clock on the wall of the Itaewon studio had stopped ticking sometime around 3 a.m., but no one moved to fix it. It wasn't time that governed the room anymore. It was silence, dense, almost suffocating, but not empty. It carried weight, decision, consequence. Every eye in the room was glued to the monitor in front of Namjoon, where a single message blinked on the screen. Are you sure you want to upload all selected files? The cursor hovered there, motionless. Taehyung sat on the windowsill, arms crossed, a cigarette burning slowly between his fingers, even though he hadn't touched it in minutes. Hoseok paced in the back, muttering to himself. Yoongi hadn't blinked in what felt like hours, his eyes fixed on the folder marked Surveillance, BTS. Jungkook leaned against the far wall, his head tilted slightly, reading every file name again and again. Jimin sat closest to the screen. The light washed over his face, casting shadows beneath his eyes, hollowing out whatever was left of fear. Namjoon spoke first. If we do this, we don't just destroy Hybe, we destroy ourselves. Jimin didn't flinch. Then let it burn. Are you sure? Namjoon asked, quieter now. Are you sure this isn't vengeance? Jimin looked up. It stopped being vengeance the moment I realized this wasn't just about me. Jungkook's voice broke through. They made us believe we owed them everything. Our loyalty, our silence, our pain. They trained us to be grateful while they dissected us, Taehyung added. Namjoon turned to Yoongi. How bad is it? Yoongi finally looked away from the screen. Bad enough that if we drop this, the entire entertainment industry will be forced to shift. Artists will revolt. CEOs will resign. This isn't just Hybe. This is systemic. Silence again. Hoseok ran a hand through his hair. And the fans? They'll be divided, Jimin said. Some will defend the company. Some will call us liars. Some will hate us. And some will finally understand. Yoongi pushed his chair back. Then what are we waiting for? Namjoon didn't move. I need to hear it. From all of you. No going back. No what-ifs. No regrets. Taehyung stood from the windowsill. If this is the only way to stop them from doing this to another group, then I'll carry the weight. Hoseok nodded. I'm in. I'd rather be hated for telling the truth than loved for staying quiet. Yoongi leaned forward. Upload it. Jungkook stepped closer to the table. Let's end this the way it should have ended years ago, with honesty. All eyes turned to Jimin. He didn't hesitate. I was the first one to fall. Let me be the first one to stand, too. Namjoon hovered his finger over the trackpad. Click. The files began to upload. And the world, already shaking, started to collapse. And by 8 a.m., the damage had detonated across the internet like wildfire caught in gasoline. News outlets were scrambling. Hashtags multiplied in dozens of languages. Former trainees, idol groups, and anonymous employees came forward with statements, screenshots, and audio confirming the abuse, manipulation, and silencing techniques hidden under Korea's most pristine music empire. The leaked files didn't just expose Hybe, they tore apart the illusion of the industry itself. A former executive from another agency posted anonymously, "What BTS just did will be remembered as the first time idols fought back and didn't flinch." Fans were polarized. Some screamed betrayal. Others cried relief. Fan bases split. Brand deals vanished. Board members resigned. And in the middle of it all stood BTS, unshaken in their decision, but bracing for the avalanche they knew would bury them alive before they could dig back out. Hybe's legal team responded within hours. A cease and desist letter was issued. A press conference was called. The statement read, BTS's recent actions do not reflect the values or operational procedures of Hybe. The company is currently investigating the source and validity of the files. We urge fans and the media to refrain from spreading unverified information. Legal proceedings are underway. Inside the members' private group chat, Namjoon sent a single line. They're calling it unverified. Yoongi replied, then let's verify it. Within minutes, they posted a joint video statement. No filters, no lighting, just a dim room and 7 exhausted faces. Namjoon spoke first. This will be the last time we use this platform. Not because we're disappearing, but because we're choosing something different. Jungkook added, we were silent for too long. We thought silence was protection, but it only protected the wrong people. Taehyung's voice was sharp. What you saw in those files was real. We lived it. We survived it. But others didn't. Yoongi looked straight at the camera. You want to know if we're still a group? We've never been more of one. Jimin's turn came last. I hurt people I love because I was scared. I betrayed trust to keep breathing in a place that kept suffocating me. This isn't redemption. This is responsibility. And then Jungkook said what no one expected. This will be our last official act under the name BTS under HYBE. The video ended there. The internet imploded. Calls poured in. Media, levers, agencies, international press. But the members didn't answer. They were already gone. They'd boarded a private van to a remote location on Jeju Island, where a house awaited them, no staff, no schedules, no cameras. Just 7 people finally deciding what they would become now that they dismantled everything that defined them. Inside the house, they unpacked in silence. Not awkward, just peaceful, heavy with the knowledge of what they'd just destroyed and what it could finally allow them to rebuild. Night fell. They gathered in the kitchen, sharing food that wasn't catered, laughing not because it was expected, but because it came naturally. Taehyung toasted with water. To the end of a dynasty, Namjoon raised his glass. And the beginning of something real. Jimin looked at Jungkook. You still with me? Jungkook smiled. Always. And for the first time in years, no one was wearing a mask. I'm Send. Outside, the headlines didn't stop. HYBE filed a 30 billion won lawsuit. Other idols stepped forward with support. One company was dissolved. 2 new independent labels emerged. But on Jeju Island, the only thing that mattered was silence, and what the 7 of them were going to do with it. The sound of waves crashing against Jeju's southern cliffs had never felt so mocking. It was supposed to be a sanctuary, this house, this island, this self-imposed exile from the machine they had finally escaped. But peace had a strange way of revealing what the pressure had buried. With HYBE's lawsuit circling like a vulture and the entire world dissecting their rebellion, the calm didn't feel like healing. It felt like waiting for the next blow. Inside the living room, dimly lit and open to the sea breeze, the 6 remaining members sat scattered, each in varying states of exhaustion. Jimin hadn't joined them yet. He had disappeared into one of the back rooms after dinner, saying nothing. And for a while, no one had the nerve to follow. Not after the look on his face when Jungkook read aloud the leaked court documents HYBE had submitted just hours earlier. In bold letters, the lawsuit claimed, Subject, Park Jimin. Charge, deliberate corporate sabotage and breach of confidentiality agreement. Status, primary catalyst of unprecedented economic loss. To HYBE Corporation. Recommendation, permanent blacklisting and injunction on any independent musical activities.